I'm Jerry Brainum. I'm here once again to answer questions from viewers of the Generation Iron Fitness Network. So let me get to it right away. Here's the question. I'm going to read it as I got it. It says, I find that my legs grow in a slower pace than that of my upper body. What is the best way to train them, as in sets, reps, and how many times a week, and types of exercises? The same thing for my calves too. Thank you, Joshua. Okay, Joshua, first of all, unfortunately, you didn't mention your degree of training experience in this query. In other words, I don't know whether you're a beginner or you're advanced, so I'm just going to give you some general suggestions because, your level of training experience does make a big difference. Obviously, if you have a little, more time in the gym, you could train with a greater volume or you could train with a higher level of intensity. So, I'm going to have to give you some general suggestions because I don't know your training experience. I don't know whether you have any previous injuries. So there's a lot that I really, have to make. Again, I can only give you general suggestions because of the limited amount of information that you supplied. But anyway, to answer your question, let me put it to you this way. You could look, I don't know if you're old enough to remember, there was a bodybuilder years ago named Tom Platz. He competed in the Olympia and a couple other contests in the 80s. I believe he won a Miss Universe contest. Platz probably has the best developed legs in bodybuilding history. His quads, hamstrings, that so to speak. His legs were tremendous. And I had the opportunity, I was writing for some bodybuilding magazines years ago. I had the opportunity to interview Tom, who's a terrific guy, by the way. I interviewed him, and of course the obvious question is, how did you build those legs? And his answer kind of surprised me because what he told me was that as a teenager, he had written to Joe Weider, who was, the publisher of the biggest bodybuilding magazines, and he sent a picture of himself to Joe, asking for suggestions from Joe. And Joe, or whoever, probably not Joe, somebody else wrote him back and told him that his upper body showed a lot of potential, but his legs basically stank. He had really no leg development at all. So whoever wrote the letter suggested that he concentrate on legs. So anyway, what happened was in the course of experimentation, Tom had trained in a powerlifting gym. I believe it was in Detroit, where a lot of the guys did heavy squats. So he followed suit. He figured, all right, these guys have big legs. I'm going to do heavy squats like them. But his thighs did not really respond as he expected them to. But I think what happened was, as an experiment, he decided to experiment with higher reps, and he started doing sets of squats 50 to even up to 100 reps, and that's when his thighs got freaky looking. They just grew like crazy. Turns out years later, some studies came out showing that because of the extent of muscle mass in the legs, it's a large muscle group, and actually responds better to higher reps. When I say higher reps, I'm not necessarily talking about 50 to 100 reps. I'm talking about a minimum of 12 to 15 up to 20 reps. I can attest to that myself because when I first started training, unlike a lot of other people, back in those days, everybody was just training their biceps and they're doing bench presses. They didn't care about leg development. I happened to send away for some bodybuilding courses, and I followed the routines, which happened to be complete routines. So I started training my legs hard right from the start. And I remember doing this thing called breathing squats, where you would basically take a number of breaths between each rep. You'd do about, I think it was about 15 to 20 reps. Then immediately you would do straight on pullovers. Not only did I get tremendous leg development after about 6 months, but I also put about 6-7 inches on my chest from doing the breathing pullovers. The truth of the matter is I was only about 14 years old, so I was a beginner and I grew rapidly, but that kind of taught me how, the legs will respond to higher reps. So you might want to experiment with that too. And of course, squats are the key to leg size. You can't get big legs doing leg extensions, which is an isolation exercise. Leg presses are a good exercise, but they're kind of a partial range of movement. And the way I see people doing leg presses today is just a joke. These people load up like 10 plates on each side. They go down about a millimeter. I still have no idea what muscle they're working. They're certainly not working the legs. If you're going to do leg presses, you have to do a full movement. But even if you do, it's not going to be the equivalent to the squat. So the key to size in the legs is doing squats. Now, what else can I tell you? You have to experiment with other exercises. You have to be aware, for example, hack squats, hack squat machine. It's a great exercise, but the angle actually puts a lot of stress on your knees. When you do the hack squats, I strongly suggest you never keep your knees together. Don't use a narrow stance. This causes a shearing effect on your knee cartilage. Eventually, I did that exercise for 30 years. I wound up with severe knee arthritis. When I did some MRI scans, the doctor told me I had no cartilage left. This is from doing years and years of heavy, narrow stance hack squats. Avoid them at all costs. If you do leg extensions, which also provides a shearing effect on the knees, don't even think about using heavy weight. Use moderate to lightweight. Use them as a warm-up like Arnold did. You know, that's what we did back in the days in the original Gold's Gym. It was used as a warm-up, never done heavy. The heavy weight is reserved for leg presses, you know, multiple joint movements, leg presses, what they call closed kinetic chain type movements, squats and leg presses, that type of thing. Always include something for your hamstrings, also very important. You have to have a certain proportion of strength between the hamstrings and the quads. The quads are the frontal thighs. Otherwise, you can incur an injury. A typical hamstring exercise: leg curls, stiff-legged deadlifts, standing leg curls. These are all excellent. It's a good idea to do a leg curl movement and a stiff-legged deadlift because of the nature of the insertion of the hamstring muscles. You want to get them on both ends. So always do leg curls and some stiff-legged deadlifts after you do your leg curls if you want that really fantastic hamstring development, like guys like Kai Green, the development shown by these kind of guys. What else can I tell you? You also want to, when you do your exercises, be aware of good form. Don't make the mistake a lot of people do when they do squats. They drop right down. They don't control the weight. This not only will cause you knee injuries, but it will also slow down your gains. You want to keep the weight controlled at all times. You want to take about 2 seconds to raise the weight, 4 seconds to lower. When you do squats, go down real slow. Experiment. If you have any kind of knee problem, you might want to keep away from the full squats and do parallel squats, that type of thing. As far as other exercises, some guys like to do lunges. I asked Tom Platz about that. He told me it was a waste of time. I kind of found that myself. I think lunges are best reserved for, let's say, your butt, your upper thigh. They're pretty good. A little trick I found is to do some adductor work. The adductors are the inner thigh, and a lot of these gyms have adductor machines, but you can always use pulleys. The exercise involves kind of bringing your legs together, under resistance. And the reason I'm suggesting this is by doing the adductor exercises, you don't get those muscles when you do squats and leg presses. You don't. Using a wide stance like we believe years ago gets the inner thigh. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work at all. You have to do something directly for the adductors, and it gives you the added benefit of working a large muscle that runs down your leg called the sartorius. And when you're low in fat, and the sartorius when you're able to see the sartorius because of less subcutaneous fat, it makes your legs look like they're sliced. It makes them look like super cut. So you might want to include about 2-3 sets of adductor work also. So that's about it for today. I just want to strongly suggest anyone who wants the best details on exercise science, nutrition, supplements, ergogenic aids, hormonal therapy, anti-aging, fat loss techniques. You want in-depth, solid, evidence-based information, no BS, solid facts. I strongly suggest you subscribe to my Applied Metabolics newsletter, www.appliedmetabolics.com. The best information you'll find anywhere on any internet site. Forget the magazines. They don't even approach the amount of information I'm giving in this newsletter. I'm giving everything I know. It's over 5 decades of experience coupled with years and years of study. 33 cents a day and you'll know everything. Have a good day. Nice talking to you.
Do you think that penalties are strict enough? Do you think they should be stricter?
What personally, I'd like to see a first-time offense lifetime ban.
Wow.
If an athlete says, well, 6 months, 9 months, I only fight every 4 or 5 months anyway, I'll roll the dice. I hate hearing about it. It hurts the credibility of the clean athletes that are out there. It hurts the credibility of the coaches and teams that are trying to just